Hello and welcome back. As always, the detectives here and police up and down the country have been busy with your calls, and there have already been some results.
Indeed. First, the armed robbery in Edinburgh, which resulted in an extraordinary car chase through the main streets of the city during the rush hour. It happened on Friday, the 1st of March, at around 5 p.m, when two security guards, determined not to let the robbers escape, chased them, and they eventually caught up with them in the Royal Mile at Canongate. The robbers eventually got away, but Detective Inspector Tom Snedden is determined to catch up with them. What sort of response have you had?
We've had an excellent response. We've had over 60 calls, 3 of which are very promising, in fact giving names of suspects. What I'm actually looking for is further corroboration, and I would reiterate what already I said in relation to people phoning in. If they think they recognise anyone from either the photo fit or the descriptions, please phone.
Now, of one man in particular who was inside the housing offices, we have a very, very good description indeed.
Yes, that was the man with the gun. He's aged approximately 30 years, 6 feet tall, well built. He's pale complexion, black straggly hair, unwashed, falling over his forehead. He's got a moustache, and again he was wearing the blue anorak.
Now, we also need to trace that Ford Cortina SSF 701V between the hours that it was stolen from Glasgow on the 28th of February to the following evening when it was used in the robbery.
Yes.
In Edinburgh. On the whole, have you got new evidence, new information you didn't have before the programme?
Yes, we have.
Good. All right. Well, the lines are still open, and we'll give you more numbers later on this evening.
And earlier this evening, we also appealed for new information about the disappearance of Mark Tilsley from Wokingham in Berkshire. In the early evening of June the 1st last year, 7-year-old Mark went to the local fair. The last known sighting of him, just after 8 o'clock in the evening, was with a man in his 50s in Langborough Road. Mark has never been seen since. Well, Detective Superintendent Tony Miller, I said it was a long shot, perhaps, to expect new information and new witnesses 1 year on, but in fact you've had a lot of calls.
Indeed, I'm very, very pleased. We've had over 100 calls at the studio, and I know that at Reading Police Station we've received in excess of 200.
Have you had any sightings of that hitchhiker, the most important one?
I'm pleased to say also that we've had a lot of those calls relating to that hitchhiker, at least 50 at this studio. I'm not sure about Reading.
And to recap, we should remind people that he's carrying a tachograph, he was carrying a tachograph, and it was June the 1st.
It was June the 1st, he was carrying the tachograph. He was described, as the viewers will recall, as 5 feet 8 to 10, 50 to 60 years of age, grey hair, medium build, with prominent cheekbones, and at that time a beard growth.
And maybe with or maybe without glasses, we don't know.
Indeed, we're not sure about
Somewhere
that.
between
But of course, I reiterate what I said before, I want to hear from anyone who has offered anyone employment of that description. In addition to that, as a last appeal, I would like to remind the people that Mark was wearing a coat very similar to this in Wokingham that evening. I would like to hear from people who may have seen Mark around the town, and indeed from people who were at the fair that evening.
Mr. Miller, thank you.
Thank you.
And to see what's happened on Incident Desk, here's Helen Phelps and David Hatcher. David, can we start with the men who were caught in the act by the camera robbing 3 building society offices in Birmingham?
Yes, that looks very promising. We've had suggested identifications of the 2 men from policemen and members of the criminal fraternity. And we can see those 2 pictures again. The man on the right is the man who had the gun in the raid that we saw. He's 5 foot 8 and well built. The second man, believed to be wearing a false beard and moustache, he's 5 foot 6, slim, short dark hair. If you think you know who he is, still give us a call. We'll welcome any other suggestions.
OK, and the robbery in Beaconsfield that took place while there was a bomb scare going on.
Yes, that's right. There are a number of calls suggesting a possible outlet for the stolen dresses and shoes. And remember, the names there were Jasper Conran, Roland Klein and Caroline Charles dresses, and the 300 pairs of designer shoes by Charles Jourdain. If you think you may have bought something like that, then give us a ring. Better that you come to us than we come to you.
I gather several people have suggested where they're on sale at the moment.
That's right, yes.
Right, and what's this you've got here?
And the other thing is, now I was most sceptical about this, didn't think we'd solve the problem of the Jemmy, because there must be lots like this, but we think we found the shop that sold this in Brixton, a small hardware store. Obviously inquiries to follow up there, but that looks extremely promising, and I'm very pleased.
Right. Can we move to David Beatles? The two of you were asking for any information about him in connection with the £168,000 fraud. He's wanted for inquiries. Any information?
Yes, many sightings of the man in Cornwall and Somerset. Now, the West Country link is interesting, as it was initially thought he was in that area. Now, one caller has requested the photo fit picture again, believing he has had very recent contact with the man.
Right. Now, one of the most frightening things that you talked about was the Whittington Hospital fire in North London. Someone, it seems, deliberately set fire to a hospital just a few yards from patients who were acutely ill. Any information?
Yes, one very promising call. A person took photographs of the fire. He was at the scene. Now, it is known that arsonists do stay and watch their handiwork, so these photographs will be scrutinised very soon by the officers in the case.
Right. Helen David, thank you.
And finally, the violent armed robbery of antique dealers Wallace and Mary Foster in Weybridge in the early hours of Monday, April the 22nd. Remember, we showed you how the day before the attack, two men were seen outside Church House Antiques. Now, they were clearly there to take a close look at the shop because after a few moments they walked back in the direction they'd come from, and police were hoping to trace them. Detective Superintendent Gladwell, there were a lot of clues there. Have you had a good response?
Yes, we've had a very, very good response, in excess of 100 calls in all, and a few into Addleston Police Station regarding the people seen on the Saturday evening.
Any chance of tracing those two men?
Well, it's early days yet. Obviously, the inquiries are yet to be made.
What about those cars? They were very distinctive, a Jaguar and a Rover.
Yes, we've had a number of calls regarding these vehicles. One person suggested that a Jaguar and a Rover, fitting the description of our two vehicles, were put up for sale at auction on Tuesday of this week.
Would you be able to trace who put those up for auction?
Well, we've got to look into that, of course.
And what about the jewellery? There were two very distinctive pieces of jewellery.
Yes, again, we've had a very, very important call on this from a member of the public who has given us details of a possible receiver.
Right, and finally, the vital clue, that canvas bag which the robbers left behind, is that going to be traceable?
Yes, we've had a lot of calls regarding the number on the bag, and most of the calls suggest that it's a service number, possibly a naval number.
So it could well be traceable?
Yes, indeed.
So to sum up what we're looking for?
Well, we're looking for two violent criminals who committed a very serious offence, and I would urge anyone who has got any information, no matter how small, to contact us.
Thank you, Mr. Gladwell.
In fact, I gather there's another important call just come in on that. Now, the lines are going to be open until midnight. The number, of course, 01811 8055. We'll give you local numbers in a moment. All these numbers are on CFAX, if you have it on your television, on page 186.
Or alternatively, you could write to us in absolute confidence, of course. This is the address, Crimewatch UK, BBC Television Centre, London W12 8QT.
Thank you very much for calling, if you did. Let me remind you that what we've shown you tonight is the exception. It's not the norm. Violent crime really is much rarer than most people think. With your help, we can make it rarer still. Do sleep well. If you can't sleep, I promise you're in good company because Sue is going to have to stay up. She's on breakfast time tomorrow morning.
It's a tough life, isn't it?
Good night.
Good night.